We just watched House of the Dragon Episode 4, King of the Narrow Sea. What are your thoughts?
I quite liked it. We got to see a little bit more outside the castle, which I thought was a good change. We got to see Rhaenyra a little bit in her own skin, which was nice. And then it progressed the story in a good way, I think, in a uncomfortable, but for the better of the show. So I'm really excited to see where they go, and I think coming up in the next episodes, the story with Rhaenyra is especially going to start moving forward faster because they had kind of stalled out. Mostly in the last episode, it felt like we were getting a repeat of episode 2, some of the thoughts from episode 2. But with episode 4 here, it seems like they're finally going to, they addressed it, and they're going to go to a part in the story where we've moved on. Specifically with her relationship, courtship. So for those reasons, seeing some different locations, the story progression, I liked it a lot.
Yeah, I thought this was a good episode. It was like some of the dominoes are starting to fall, and at the same time, more dominoes are being placed. It's like some of the foreshadowing that we got in episodes 1, 2, and 3 is starting to pay off already, which is like, it seems like it's moving quick, episode 4 already, but
we're almost halfway through the season, so it's about time that, it moves along.
Yeah, and with that, it's like we're starting to get some, not action, but plot action, while more and more and more is being set up in the future. So if I had to give this one a score, I'd give it another solid 8. Like, really good, really enjoyed it, and looking forward to more.
Yeah, I think I'll match you there, an 8. This is kind of the standard that I would like to see for House of the Dragon, like an 8. Good story, movement, good visuals. You guys see more locations than just the hallways of the castle and some of their bedrooms. Yeah. So let's get into a little bit about the episode. But first, we have a comment we'd like to address from our discussion about episode 3. So we had the user Damon Targ comment about the hunt and some of the meaning behind the White Heart. Something that we didn't actually pick up on was some potential foreshadowing. They mentioned that the White Heart can be taken as a meaning that because King Viserys didn't catch the White Heart, they got a brown one. It could mean that Aegon was not meant to be king, just like the hunt. It didn't end up that they caught, the creature that they were expecting. So it may have influenced Viserys' decision to keep Rhaenyra as the heir, because the hunt was for Aegon, his birthday, and them not getting what they wanted symbolized that he is not the rightful heir.
Yeah, and further to that, the White Heart itself is a symbol within A Song of Ice and Fire, as well as fiction at large. It's a symbol of royalty. So them looking for the White Heart and spotting it in the first place in Aegon's hunt is like, oh, maybe he is, the rightful heir according to this like symbol. And then turns out they don't find it, and it approaches Rhaenyra independently. So is that a signal to the audience that like Rhaenyra is supposed to be the rightful heir? Could be. Now, there's a few interesting things about that, which is like, does that mean the creators of the show are wanting us to take sides? Is this kind of part of a bigger discussion within A Song of Ice and Fire about how symbols are what we interpret them to be? They don't have any...
not necessarily what they actually are, or they could be nothing.
Yeah, it could be like, it's not an objective statement. It's like, it's subjective because the White Heart is just an animal. It doesn't actually mean anything, but based on how characters interpret it, it gives it meaning. And that could potentially affect the story moving forward, although I do think it was just a neat bit of symbolism with the White Heart. I don't suspect it'll come back in any meaningful way, but a nice decision by the creators to include it, to give it that extra layer of depth.
Yeah, and it kind of felt like a callback to how the Game of Thrones started with the direwolf being killed by a stag. That was a meaning that was like a symbol of things to come in that series, and like that's what they took it as. So it could just be like a neat nod to that, or just good like good writing, like tying things neatly into the episode.
Yeah, definitely good writing, and it's a good sign that they included something like that, because it shows attention to detail and really a lot of care put into the minutia of each episode.
Yeah, and it plays into the superstitions of the people. And yeah, just it helps. It's a good thought. Like when you think about it, it just gives you something extra to observe and like discuss with people. So it's always nice to see that.
Getting back to this episode 4, we open up, I believe, with a parade of suitors.
Yeah.
So the one we are introduced to is an old man trying to get Rhaenyra's hand in marriage, which she basically laughs off, and then immediately followed by a very young man, a Blackwood, I believe, who is also, of course, trying to get Rhaenyra's hand in marriage. And I'll just jump straight into some of the neat little detail that was there, which was the Blackwoods and Brackens. I don't know how much you know about their rivalry, but they have a long standing rivalry within the A Song of Ice and Fire like history, that they have never gotten along. So just the fact that they included that is, again, neat, and kind of a cool almost Easter egg, where it's like,
if you know, you know, but if you don't know, it's no consequence, and like you're not left out necessarily.
Exactly, yeah. So it just, is a nod to the larger universe that George R. R. Martin has built. The fact that the Blackwoods and Brackens had that little fight at the beginning. So
yeah, I also noticed in that scene that the man who was beside her in the seat, introducing the suitors, he was a Baratheon, correct?
I believe so.
Or he had the House Baratheon crest.
Yeah, and so I think the reason he might have been there is, if I was paying attention the right way, they were having that meeting in the Stormlands. And so the Stormlands are ruled by the Baratheons, just like the North is ruled by the Starks and the West by the Lannisters. So that could have been because that would have been the Baratheons' kind of realm within the Seven Kingdoms, and would have been his subjects that were trying to get Rhaenyra's hands. Hence his appearance.
Oh, okay. And then, shortly after that, we get her. She cuts the tour short, by 2 months, I believe it was. No suitor was chosen, which is going to make the king a little bit upset, and get the ire of the king. But Damon comes back, and it seems like he's back from the Stepstones.
Yeah, I think it takes place within the same year at the least, of the last episode. Not a huge time jump this time.
And I think that was kind of pointed out when they said that Aegon is still 3, right? Because he was 3 in the last episode, or was he 2?
It was his second name day, so he was 2.
And so this is about a year then, because they mentioned he's 3 now, and they have another baby.
Okay.
They have a daughter, I believe it is.
Okay, that's a detail I missed.
I could be wrong about that, but I remember seeing Alicent holding another baby.
That's right.
And
yes.
I believe it was a lady. I believe it was
a lady baby,
a little girl.
Yes,
yes, a female baby. But yeah, Damon comes back. He's done with his time in the Stepstones, and basically it was implied that no one is ruling there anymore, and that they're just gonna
let it go back to the pirates, basically.
Yeah, let it be. But it seems like they didn't clean up the mess that he left in episode 3.
Yeah, and that's kind of interesting, because I wonder if that'll come back. I don't think it will. But yeah, that whole situation creates kind of a power vacuum in the Stepstones,
because no one rules it.
Yeah, so it's, fertile ground for pirates and mercenaries or even smugglers to set up,
Because do the free cities operate in that area?
That's kind of the no man's land between the free cities and Westeros. Dorne specifically.
Okay. Do you think that Dorne is going to become like a significant, like, because there's still a war yet to be had there, right? Or
In
had that
Dorne?
already passed?
So they haven't. The Seven Kingdoms, Westeros, does not include Dorne right now. It's not under the rule of the king, as far as I'm aware. So there may be some conflicts in Dorne. I don't know how much spoilers you want about how Dorne comes into the fold. So I'll just leave it at that for now.
So we'll wait and see what happens.
We'll wait and see.
I would like to see Corlys. I think Corlys might, operate within there in later episodes. But that's just my speculation. So then, yeah, Damon's back. The people who were with him in battle, I think they named him King of the Narrow Sea with some mockery of a crown, right?
Yeah, almost like a crown made of driftwood or something similar. Kind of symbolizing the sea area that he took. Which is interesting because it seems like he may or may not be making a play for the throne. And so this is like, see, I can win my own throne, but he still respects his brother. That family respect he showed earlier in the show. Still there.
Yeah. But it's like respectfully disrespectful.
Respectful for Damon.
Yeah.
Which is not saying a lot.
So then, talking about Damon, he is one of like the main parts of this episode. He leads Rhaenyra into town, escorts her through town. It sounds like it's like the first time she's been outside the walls, on her own.
Yeah, and that tracks with, of royal upbringing.
Yeah, normally you'd be with the Kingsguard or of the like, right? Yeah,
you're not going to go out on your own basically ever. Especially as a princess and as the heir specifically, as we've seen, Kristen Cole accompanies her everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
So to have a night where she's completely on her own, that would be completely foreign to her, hence her excitement. And that, tracks with her personality of being not carefree, but adventurous. And another thing I wanted to bring up with the whole bringing the tour short, jumping back to that kind of, I think, is setting up another domino in terms of personality conflicts where she is not compromising on choosing a husband. And I think that's going to become a theme for her. She's not compromising for political plays, and it's going to come back to bite her.
Okay. But they do end up resolving that problem at the end of the episode. We'll get to it. But you don't think that she'll stick with that?
I don't think that's going to stick at all.
Okay. So, anyways, with Damon, they're in this town. They're walking through, and it's kind of neat that you get to see, like, how depraved everyone is in town. Like, it's really strange. Like, it's just people doing whatever they want, really.
It's the common folk, and I doubt this is what they were going for, but I could definitely see how, like, it'd be... the royalty are all proper and stuff, and so every time they go into the city, if that's what they see,
like
they're gonna it's like a not a reason, but a glimpse into how royalty sees the common folk and why some of them might look down on the common folk as, like you say, depraved and lesser and not noble.
Yeah, but it's like the royal family, at least the Targaryens, they're not much removed from doing that themselves.
Yeah.
Which we see when Rhaenyra is brought to a brothel with Damon. Mm-hmm. It's like it's really, I don't know, like it's really perverse, like the way he goes about it. Cause like to him, it's just like, oh, this is a place I go. Like this is completely normal. But if you step back and think about it, like in the show, like we're kind of conditioned to be like, oh, that's just a normal thing. But to bring your niece there is like, there's like his brain there's something wrong with it. Like it's really, really perverse. And like, there's that's definitely a sign of someone who is abusive in a way, like, or has like sexual issues.
Yeah, could be.
So, and then that plays into his character too. Like this, like it's something in real life that can happen where some like really sick people, they will do something like that and just be like, oh, that's like, it's normal.
It becomes normalized for them.
Yeah.
Like extreme behaviors become more normal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So then in that scene, we see Rhaenyra and Damon, they begin to fornicate. And
coupling, as Otto would say. And this was heavily implied that it would occur, you know, in that first scene with Damon when he came back from the Vale. From training his soldiers.
That was in episode 1?
The gold cloaks, yes.
But they were in the Vale, right?
When he gave her the necklace?
Yes.
That took place in the throne room.
Yes, but he had just come back from... No?
He had just finished training his gold cloaks. They shortly after that went on the raid.
Oh,
if you
okay.
Remember. Yeah.
I must be misremembering some of the conversations with his, where they mention his lady wife.
Yeah, he was sent back to the Vale in that episode.
Oh, okay, I see. I had it backwards. But the sexual tension between Damon and Rhaenyra in that episode is, you know, finally comes to a head. And
yeah, I wouldn't say the sexual tension was released though, because shortly after that, she comes back.
She comes back to the castle, and then she couples with Kristen Cole, which I kind of saw coming, you know, because it's like Damon almost unlocked her promiscuity in a way, and then in a way, and she was more comfortable, you know, opening up that way to someone else. And Kristen Cole, I kind of took it as like, you know, he probably would have regarded, like, if he was not the Kingsguard, you know, and but there's like that extra layer with him being the Kingsguard. It's like, can he say, like, what would the consequences be? Like, would there be consequence if he said no?
There's worse consequences, the fact that he went and did that, because Kingsguard are sworn to a vow of celibacy.
I did not know that.
Yeah, so they can't marry and they can't do anything like that because their marriage
so it's kind of like
duty.
It's kind of like the Night's Watch.
Yeah, it's very similar. They swear a similar vow in that it's their duty to protect, and they swear their oath, in this case, to the royal family, specifically the king or queen. And
okay, so I didn't, not knowing that, I thought like there would almost be like a silent repercussion of if he like denied the princess. That's kind of where my mind went, because she has the power in that situation.
Yeah, and that's where it's interesting, because she has the power, and you're right, there could have been consequences had he said no, and there's also consequences that he said yes. So it's like, either way, he got put in a pickle right there, but he didn't seem too concerned about it.
No. Do you think that that is going to come back, and do you think he's going to receive repercussions for it? Or is it going to be that they're more so focused on the Damon side of things and not so much Kristen Cole?
I think the fact that they didn't touch on it after it happened within that episode guarantees that it's coming back at some point. It's like, oh, you think we forgot about this? Nah. Someone
knows.
Everything's going to happen now because of that.
Okay,
that's my gut feeling.
I really hope they don't off Kristen Cole, like, because that's probably the consequences, that you would be killed, right?
Could be, but
or
as
banished,
you know,
or some sort.
Things aren't that black and white in Westeros, you know. So be, yeah, might not be.
The Kristen Cole goes under the radar for everyone else. However, Damon's exploits with Rhaenyra are reported to Otto Hightower and subsequently reported to the king.
Yeah, and that's actually reminded me of Varys and his little birds. So Varys was the spy master, which that position doesn't exist in the King's Council right now, but later on it gets created. But Varys was basically the informant of all informants in the Game of Thrones series. And so Otto having his spies within the city reporting to him was reminiscent of that. And then, yeah, he tells the king, who, does he believe him at first?
I don't think he believes him at first, and then he believes him, and then he gets upset that it may be true, and like almost in denial of it being true.
And then he thinks, "No, there's no way," and then fires Otto because of it. So,
well, he didn't fire Otto directly because of this. It was because Rhaenyra was sneaky about the whole situation. She was approached by Alicent, vehemently denied the allegations, right? Then, when Viserys approached her about it, she vehemently denied it, and then implied that Otto is trying to make a play for, not necessarily for him to be in the throne, because that would make no sense, but to have his way with the throne, who's on the throne, and how the king is perceived.
Yeah. What I took out of that whole sequence of events, though, was, like, that was important too, but to focus on Viserys for a second, was he's not really solid in his position. You know, within the last 20 minutes of that episode, he believed the last person he spoke to.
Yeah, so I think that kind of plays into him being one of the weaker, like a weak king. And then to go along with my theory of him being cut by the throne and like that being a symbol of him being like not fit for it. I think in this episode we get him in the bath, and you can see there's way more cuts on his back, on it. His finger is gone. So I think that's all like kind of working together to show you like he's not very strong, a strong leader.
Yeah, and again with
easily manipulated by not only
Absolutely.
Otto but also his own daughter.
And Alicent as well.
Yeah, Alicent has her
it's
own
not
agenda.
even that they're trying to, like, not necessarily manipulate him. You know, some of them just want them to believe what they believe.
And the implications really sway him. Even when he approached Damon with the allegations.
Damon's the only one he didn't believe, I will say. So, like, Otto tells them that Rhaenyra did something. He goes 100% full head of steam. Is like, oh my god, like, Rhaenyra is, like, that's such a bad thing.
Can't believe it.
And then the king talks to Alicent, and Alicent is like, he talks to Damon first, and doesn't believe anything Damon says, but Damon didn't.
He's telling the truth.
Yes.
And then, but this is where Damon tries to worm his way in and suggests, well, it already happened, so, you may as well wed me to
get
her.
us married, yeah. But then the king talks to Alicent, and Alicent is like, well, I believe Rhaenyra, and she said she didn't do it. And so then when he approaches Rhaenyra, he's already convinced by Alicent that she didn't do it. So then when Rhaenyra talks to
it's like doubled down.
It confirms what Alicent says, which of course it does because she heard it from Rhaenyra. And then Rhaenyra suggests that Otto's doing it for personal gain. And then he immediately is like, well, of course he is. I'm going to fire him as Hand of the King. So he goes from believing Otto and being totally against Rhaenyra to being convinced the complete opposite, all within the span of like a day. He doesn't stop to think about it. He doesn't think like, okay, regardless of who's telling the truth and who's not, how do I proceed? Who stands to gain what? How can I gain from this situation, if at all? He just believes the next person who talks to him and acts right away. And that's like you said, just a weak ruler to be doing that.
And then also on top of that, one interesting way to look at it is he had, maybe not these exact words, but he says something along the lines of Rhaenyra will be his undoing because of all the things that she's, made his life difficult as a king. She is his undoing because because of her, he's removing Otto, who, yes, can he be trusted? Not 100% because he has his own desires, but he has been truthful with the king. For the most part, right?
Well, I think, too, him firing Otto is a bad move because if he knows Otto's motives, at least he can
work around them.
Exactly. Like, it's better the hand you know than the one you don't. Not Hand of the King, but like a card hand. Anyways, yeah, it's like if you know his motives, at least you can deconstruct where he's coming from when he gives you advice. Like, does he stand to gain? If not, it's probably honest advice. If his family or he stands to gain at all, then you can take it with a grain of salt and move from there. But if he takes a new hand who he doesn't know as well or doesn't know their motives, he's going to be even more manipulated than he already is.
Yeah,
And
it's like he's just treading water, and then he's going to start like putting more trust in places that have misled him.
Mm-hmm.
One of the last things that came up when he was talking to Rhaenyra was she agreed to marry Corlys's son,
Laenor Velaryon.
And you say that you don't see that lasting very long.
Not a chance. Is
Damon the one who's gonna undo it, or is it? Or do you think it's just gonna be a tense marriage?
I think Rhaenyra is too headstrong, and she only did it to appease Viserys. And I think once he's appeased and his emotions settle, she'll realize, oh, maybe I don't have to go through with this. And then, be stubborn and uncompromising as she was at the beginning of this episode. And she might, depending on how things go with Damon, if he approaches her with that proposal,
lean more that way.
Exactly. And she's like, well, I'm the heir. I will be queen. I should choose my own match. And Damon is a Targaryen. What family is stronger than our own family? There are reasons to do it. And
Targaryen reasons.
Yeah. And so I can easily see her convincing herself that that's the best course of action. Plus, her emotions are all mixed up with that. So that's what I think. Now, I could also see her marrying Laenor and then somehow annulling the marriage and then going to Damon. Or, I, again, could be completely wrong, and the marriage to Laenor lasts and they become an ally, but in the eventual conflict, something might happen.
All right. So, we went over the episode.
I had just a couple more quick notes. The appearance of Blackfyre was interesting. Just another little
Is that
tidbit.
The dagger?
That's the sword that Viserys was holding when Damon first appeared in the court at the beginning of this episode. He was holding a big staff.
Sword, okay.
Yeah, so that's the same sword that Aegon the Conqueror had when he took over Westeros. And later in A Song of Ice and Fire, in the history, I believe it's outside the timeline of this show, there's what they call the Blackfyre Rebellion, where a bastard son of the king, a future king, is basically gifted Blackfyre as a sword and raises his banners in rebellion, saying, like, I've got Blackfyre, I should be rightful king, I've been legitimized as a bastard, and so I want the throne. And so that event actually plays into a song like the Game of Thrones series and all that. So, long story short, interesting and kind of cool that they brought Blackfyre into the show. And neat that they didn't make a big deal of it as like ooh, look at this. This is Blackfyre.
Like,
they didn't
it's a
focus on
legitimate
it.
Easter egg.
Exactly. So, and it's a Valyrian steel sword.
Okay.
Always cool to see one of those. And again, one more thing I'll bring up is the very last scene.
Oh, yes, we forgot to touch on that. So, the Maester brings a potion, a concoction.
They call it moon tea in the books.
Okay. Brings moon tea to Rhaenyra, and she doesn't know what it is. The Maester is very cryptic about it. So, my thoughts are that it's like a cleansing tea.
That's exactly what it is, yes.
And so then, I think, it's kind of like the king, obviously, I feel like the king knows that something went on between Damon and her, but wants to ensure that there's no unwanted consequences, as the Maester put it. And you kind of took it as more of a test of her truthfulness. Is that correct?
Yeah, so there's a few layers to this, because did we ever see the king talk to the Grand Maester in this episode?
No, that's right. So maybe he knows about something.
So who told the Grand Maester about all this?
Otto.
And why? Right? And why bring the moon tea?
Because there cannot be another heir besides Alicent's offspring.
Right, and
to
so
challenge the throne.
The first
in the
thought I
future.
had was this is a test. If it did truly come from the king and the king is second guessing Rhaenyra, it could be a test, because if Rhaenyra really didn't do anything,
Then why would she have to drink
she
it?
wouldn't need to drink it, and then the Grand Maester could come back and see that the potion was full and be like, okay, she's telling the truth, But if the Grand Maester comes back and it was drank, then it's like, well,
Something
she
happened.
drank it for a reason. Something must have happened. She's not telling the truth. And on top of that, we never saw the king dispatch the Grand Maester personally. We didn't see it on screen. Therefore, we don't know what actually happened. Who sent the Grand Maester?
Okay, now thinking about it in that context, I believe it to be Otto. I think that he's going to continue to pull some strings at the castle.
Yeah, like use that as like a second piece of evidence almost, and spread rumors maybe if he wants to go around the king to like gain more power and more legitimacy for Aegon as heir, or again try going straight to the king, but I doubt that's his approach next time.
No, I think it's going to be work from the shadows.
Yeah, and now that he doesn't have to report to the king, I feel like it frees him up in a way to do a lot more.
He doesn't have to be... He could be more direct, like in terms of when he talks to people.
Mm-hmm.
He doesn't have to be sidestepping and wording things in such a way to the king to get the outcome. Say like with the Maester, he could be like, well, bring this thing to Rhaenyra and as a test of her.
Yeah,
her
he can be
truthfulness or
straightforward to his allies.
Yes.
He doesn't have to pretend anymore.
Exactly.
So
I like that. That's if that's where it is going, that's really cool. I love when things play like that, like the intrigue.
Yeah, that's something like I'm glad I noticed it this time, because I would have looked back and been like, oh, it's so obvious. Like of course the Grand Maester wasn't sent by the king, but only when you look back is it obvious, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like it went over your head, and I'm like,
I take a lot of the show at face value because I don't have the foresight like that. But when someone approaches me with the questions, then I can start to think a little bit deeper about it and give better insights. So.
Yeah, speaking of insights, what do you think next episode's going to contain?
I think we'll get a wedding. I think it's going to be the wedding between Corlys's family and the Targaryens. But shenanigans will occur. And I think that Damon is going to be an issue. Or a pest at the wedding.
So par for the course for the show. Some shenanigans, Damon being Damon. But the wedding, you think, will be the focus, eh?
Yeah.
Okay.
And then I think after the wedding, I think that, we're at episode 5. We know that there's another actress who's going to be taking the role of an older Rhaenyra. I think that halfway through the season, this is going to possibly be the point where they move forwards with it.
Either this episode or next, because halfway is between 5 and 6, so it could be the second half being 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 with the older actresses.
Or episode ends with her being older. That's kind of where I'm going.
Yeah. Okay. So impossible to predict, in my opinion, what's going to happen next. That's a very good guess, though. Like, I can't think of anything that's more likely. But what's intriguing is, they're setting up all these dominoes, like we said, and it's just which one's going to fall next.
Yeah, my wishful thinking, like, in terms of things I'd like to see in coming episodes, potentially into, like, the second season, would be an adjacent storyline here and there of, like, the history of leaving, like, when, is it Aegon the Conqueror comes over to Westeros? I would like to see just like flashes of that and then kind of tie it together with some of the motives of House of the Dragon.
Okay.
But that's my wishful thinking, like some...
That would
because we haven't seen... Like, that's just something that we haven't seen. It's all talk. And, like, it's fine to keep it as speculative and, like...
Are you talking, like, what was read off the dagger?
Yeah.
With that prophecy?
Yeah, something like...
Of the prince that was promised?
Well, no, that's going forwards, but...
Oh, okay.
But I'm thinking more of, like, when the volcanoes and everything were exploding in...
The Doom of Valyria, yes.
I would like to see, like, maybe a little bit of that.
Okay, I just don't see that as likely, because it wouldn't be really relevant. There's a lot of talk of it, but I think, that's all it is backstory. So it could be cool, you're right, like to see a flashback, but I think it would be out of character for the show, unfortunately for us. Because yes, Valyria would be such a cool setting to see and bring us outside of Westeros and really see something new. Which,
But if that never happens, I'm not expecting it to happen, but that's just my wishful thinking. Otherwise, I'm completely fine with the course that they're setting, and I'm along for whatever they come up with.
yeah, I just want to see more of what we saw in this episode. The political intrigue, the strings being pulled by all these different people. Like, it feels like Rhaenyra is the main character, but everyone's got an angle.
Yeah, I would like to see those B plots and C plots kind of just more time with other characters,
Mhm.
but they all still work back to how it's affecting the Targaryens.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that's what one of the show's strengths has been, is tying it all together really nicely. So looking forward to the next episode.
All right, so this has been our discussion on House of the Dragon Season 1, Episode 4. If you guys liked it, drop a like. If you want to see more, hit the subscribe button. And if there's anything that you thought of while listening to us or watching the episode, leave a comment down below. We will most likely answer it in the comments and address it in our next discussion. And those were just our thoughts.